Hello and welcome back to the Film Lovers Guide to the Galaxy. My name is Jared. I'm here with, as always, Joe
Hello.
and Johnny.
What's up, everyone?
This week we are doing our top 10 favorite science fiction movies of the last 20 years, starting in 2000. Now, Joe, I was talking to Johnny before you got here. To you, what kind of makes a science fiction movie? Because there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. Like there's in recent years we've seen a lot of kind of cross blending of the genres. So I just kind of like, what when you were putting together your list, what were you keeping in mind?
I think when I was putting my list and looking at my list and looking at all the sci-fi movies I've watched, I think I tend to like sci-fi movies that have a slight horror aspect to it, and it's more like there's like a
Ooh,
big
interesting.
protagonist sort of thing,
Great.
and not in the sense that it's strictly a horror film, but it's just like there's like this twist or something like scary out there, the big unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. I can feel that. How
Yeah,
about you,
and
Johnny?
so
Oh, I'm
yeah, it's
sorry.
just
Go ahead, Joe.
no,
I didn't mean
no.
to interrupt you.
When I'm looking at my whole list, and I think overall, because there's sci-fi movies out there, that's like, oh, it's kind of more of a happy sort of thing, but overall, I think I have a more darker theme to my sci-fi is all. So
Yeah, so you're saying something like Event Horizon or that kind of stuff?
yeah. I mean, that's not necessarily on my list, but
No,
that's
that's why I
exactly the
brought it up.
example.
It's
Perfect.
97, and boy, Event Horizon, man, you show that movie to unassuming people who've never seen it, and Sam Neill shows up with no eyes, and he's all fucked
Dude,
up.
freaky.
Whew, love it. It's a great Warhammer prequel if you want to look at it that way. How about you, Johnny? What were you keeping in mind when you were making your list?
The biggest thing for me is one, most sci-fi movies have really good writing. A lot of it doesn't contradict one another in terms of the world they're building, whether scientifically or not, and it asks kind of questions within the human experience. To me, that is what makes really good sci-fi, whether it's something futuristic or something dystopian. I think that's the things that I get out of it. Also, it has to be entertaining still. Like it's still a movie, right? So, but if you could do all three, that's great.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of went along the same way. I kind of remember, 20 years is a long time. We were in middle school in 2001, and I was just kind of going through. I looked at a lot of top 10 lists, a lot of lists like that, and things that really stood out in my mind. And these are a lot of movies that I have a lot of fond memories of. I could have put like some. I have one Star Wars movie on my list. I have stuff like that, but like these are it's a good mix. I feel of a traditional and non-traditional sci-fi. So we're gonna start at number 10 and number 9 with we'll start with Joe first.
All right.
What are your number 10 and number 9?
Number 10 and number 9. Number 10 is a movie called Snowpiercer. It's, I guess, I mean, just really quickly, it's about a train. It's kind of a weird movie just because the world froze over, everyone's living on a train, and there's high class people and low class people. Um, it was, I'm not sure how big of a release Snowpiercer had. This is made by the same guy who did Parasite. And I'm when I talked to a lot of people about this, not a lot of people heard of it. I guess it wasn't that huge of a U.S. release. It was again. This is not necessarily horror, but it's more of an action sort of thing.
Yeah.
Really liked it. Very surprised. That I don't know who told me about it honestly, and I myself have didn't hear about it until someone told me, "Hey, you should check out Snowpiercer." I'm very happy I did.
Yeah, you look at the I feel that movie kind of suffers from when you look at the poster, it's got it's really generic looking. The name just kind of like whatever, but the movie's really good. I really
Yeah,
liked it. And
Yeah, I just didn't see a lot of like, how there's like a lot of ads, a lot of trailers for movies
totally.
coming out. I don't think I've seen a lot of that
Yeah,
personally.
they probably ran out of money.
Oh, sure. I mean, look, I mean, it is what it is. I have no idea what the budget of this movie was because to be honest, I'm sure it could be a lower budget because you're filming inside of pretty much a crate, right? And you could sort of limit yourself that way, so you don't have to do these giant, huge things. You can CGI some of the things, but yeah, Snowpiercer. I like Bong Joon-ho. I think he does. Obviously he does a great job. Big fan. That's my number 10.
He do you now have you seen the show at all?
No, I have not. No, I thought of looking at the show. I just never got around to it.
Show's pretty good.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those ones where I watched for 2 or 3 episodes and then I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to totally watch it." No, did not go back. I probably should at some point, but it was just keeping up with a weekly show right now for me is pretty hard outside of dumb pro wrestling. So,
TNT kind of does that to you when it comes to their shows. Like they have like really good ones, but getting used to going back and watching it every week is a little different.
I mean,
So,
you can always binge it, right? If you really
yeah,
want
that's
to.
kind of
But
what I was hoping to do, like on one of my breaks from work or whatever.
but yeah, I do recommend the show. It's really good.
Nice.
It is. I would say you just view it as a companion piece to the movie. I
Okay.
wouldn't directly compare it to the movie because if you do, then
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that doesn't make sense. But if you just watch it as like companions to one another, it's really fun to watch. Plus, anything with Jennifer Connelly, I'm signed
Oh
up to
yeah.
watch.
All in. You're number
my number
9,
nine,
Joe.
my number nine, and I think this is I was a little bit iffy on this just because I think this was a very good movie, but looking at all the other ones I liked, this is kind of how it fell. My number nine is Interstellar. I would
Okay.
yeah I would guess that a lot of people would if they made their own top 10. Interstellar would be probably a little higher on that list, just because it's kind of more of a blockbuster. I think that with the cast and all that thing they put on and just how it looks is really good. Again, I really liked it. I liked the idea of the whole time dilation. I like the cast in it. Obviously, I like the idea of going to different planets and figuring out. That's a very common theme actually in a lot of sci-fi movies. Oh, our planet's
Mhm.
dying. We got to go find somewhere else to figure out whatever. Um, but you know, I thought I would lose interest once they went to the time dilation bit, and I thought it'd be too over the top, too crazy. Turns out no, I think that's that's more quote unquote reasonable, and
Totally.
it was a great movie. Recommend.
That scene was really because I saw it in the theater and I remember it really like being really affected by that when he's going through and
Like
he's
a different
realizing when they meet the crew
like
member and he's like, "You guys have been down there for 20 something years," and I was
time
like,
dilation,
"Wait,
man.
what?" And it
I'm I have no idea how accurate that is either.
it is
But
it is super accurate.
yeah, I'm sure that they brought in some sort of scientist or physicist
I
saying this is
know.
what can happen.
I think Carl Sagan would be really happy about that
Oh,
movie.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, very, that's a
Um,
good thing to see.
so I just that really got me when he was sitting there and reading all these emails and looking at all this history that happened.
I've waited years. How many years? By now it must be.
It's 23 years, 4 months, 8 days.
Ooh, boy, that's just like that's my lasting memory of that movie.
Big
Johnny, how
time,
about
big
you?
time.
We're gonna go number 10 with you.
So at number 10, I have J.J. Abrams' best Star Wars movie. It is Star Trek. Came out in 2009.
Ooh,
Good pick,
hell
good pick.
yeah!
I absolutely love the whole reboot of the series.
Mhm.
I like that they flipped the characters around. Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto have such a great chemistry together. And I actually am I know everyone loves Leonard Nimoy, but I think Zachary Quinto as Spock, or this version of Spock, was actually it grounded the movie a lot for me just to watch it.
Doctor, I am no longer fit for duty. I hereby relinquish my command based on the fact that I have been emotionally compromised.
I don't think it would have worked. I don't think Leonard Nimoy's Spock would have worked in this universe.
And they did it so well. I get it. People are going to be like lens flare. That's what we got introduced, right? That's how everyone knows what lens flares were. But I thought the story was very moving. The characters were used really well. If you're a big Star Trek fan, like of the original series or the movies, it paid homage really well. And while flipping certain aspects of their characters, there was, like I said, you can tell that there's a reverence for this franchise when J.J. Abrams did it. And without this movie, he probably wouldn't be doing Star Wars, right? But I think he did it so well that it deserved to be on my list.
Absolutely. I think man, that movie, that Star Trek movie is just fun. You know? Like you
Yeah.
hear, I am a big Star Trek fan. I don't like the original series, but I can appreciate what it did for science fiction and everything Gene Roddenberry brought to the table. But you know, taking what it did and kind of splitting the timeline in a way that made sense, honoring the characters, but these characters are different because that's how the timeline worked out. It
Yeah.
was a really smart way to do it. And you know, the lens flares work for me. I feel this is the first time that the lens flare kind of got into meme territory of, oh, LOL, lens flare, but it works. You had this like kind of like unbridled like future ahead of you, and it was bursting at the seams of this spaceship and their exploration. I just loved it. Great pick, Johnny. What was your number 9?
At number 9, I have Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049. I think this movie, while long, it was able to pay homage to the original, yet still being its own story. I think, spoilers, I think using Ryan Gosling's character as, at the end, tricking us to wanting us to believe he's, you know, the child of, or the savior of this, and he really isn't. He's just part of the plan that's going on. I thought was really like smartly done.
Mm-hmm.
It had me kind of fooled as well. Performances, like I said, Harrison Ford, that guy just like shows up to collect money, but I felt like he was actually trying in this movie.
When he wants to, he can put in the work.
Yeah. So, and you know, I just think with that and the score is never going to be as great as original Blade Runner, but
I mean,
it got pretty close to it.
I really liked it. So I'll touch on this movie later. Ominous, I know. I felt I was relieved, you know, you bringing up the fact that it was smart how they did it. He's not the child. I was rolling my eyes going like, "Oh no, not another chosen one. I don't need that." Like Blade Runner's
Right.
not about that, but I remember turning it on for the first, you know, half hour, 45 minutes the other day. My girlfriend was kind of watching. She's like, "What is this?" And I was so into it. I love this movie. You know,
Yeah.
it's really hard sci-fi at points, you know, but it's the noir aspect is so good. We know we were talking about blending genres. It does it so well. Oh man.
Yeah, it's really good. And I, you know, shockingly, like I was like thinking this movie was going to go higher, but like the movies I have ahead of it are just so good. But I think it's a crowning achievement to make a sequel 30 years plus later,
Absolutely.
still be like, you know, people will debate kind of, even though there's really isn't. Blade Runner probably is the better movie of the two, but I think having Blade Runner 2049 out this far, this, you know, it's just, to me, a very great movie
Yeah.
that was made.
And it
Good
makes
pick.
me excited for Dune because
Yeah.
you watch him and I'm like, oh, fuck yeah.
Dude.
My number 10 is The Martian. I love this book, first off. And man, I've read this book countless times. I listened to the audiobook. It's a great road trip book for me because it's funny, it's easy to listen to. And then I went into this movie with a little trepidation, you know. Matt Damon, I just don't know how it would be. It's a tough ask. It's a guy alone on a planet, you know, kind of the Castaway thing. We've seen that movie before.
Yeah.
But man, they absolutely kill it.
Somehow, we have to have complex astrophysical engineering conversations using nothing but a still frame camera.
I love this stuff. It's a great, not only science movie, but a great engineering movie. The way he figures out problems, and it's so pro science. And like the scene where Starman kicks in with David Bowie, that little montage, I get choked up every time I watch it because it's such an idealized version of the nations working together for science, the community, and to help Mark Watney get off that. It just gets to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
You got to get Mark.
and it just kind of gets to me. I just love this movie so much, and it was like it might be a little low. I might come back to it later and think it should be a little higher, but I absolutely love this movie, and it's rewatchable on a level that not a lot of movies are.
It's funny because watching that movie, like I thought going into it, it was going to be a little bit darker, specifically because Ridley Scott was the one directing this
Totally,
movie.
great
I was
point.
shocked at how light the movie was.
Yeah.
It kept moving and it hinged a lot, like I said, because it's Castaway on Mars, right? It's like Matt Damon kept it really going, and I was very moved by that movie. Yeah,
So interestingly enough, there was one scene where they took out from the book where he tips the rover on the way to the ascent vehicle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's fucked, and like it's this whole thing. So, but they cut it out, and I think it was a smart cut because that
Because it'd
movie,
be a
Johnny,
sad ending.
it clip. No. I mean, he gets off, but it moves at a good clip. You're never going like, God, this is kind of boring. It's just one guy.
Oh, I see. The pacing is why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really smart filmmaking there. My number 9 is Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind.
Ooh, nice. Nice.
Boy, this movie is sad, like
Hell yeah.
if you've
Very
ever
sad.
been in a breakup, you know the feeling that these characters are going through, and you have this sense of, God, I wish I could forget, but when you think about it, that idea of forgetting these wonderful and even kind of the bad memories that you have gone through and have shared with this person for however long it is, it's just so heartbreaking. This movie is so good, and it gets to me every time. I've only seen it a handful of times because this is not really a rewatchable movie, if you know what I mean. Like,
no, it's not.
no,
It would
it's
hurt. It'd be
rough.
depressing, dude.
Absolutely,
depressing.
but the scenes where you see the physical breaking down of his memories and that kind of thing, it just, boy, it's so good, and it's cathartic in a way. I'll watch it when I was going through a real rough breakup a number of years ago, and I watched it, and I got this sense of catharsis of relatability to it, and I don't want to go too in depth and spoil a lot of these movies because I want you got listeners to watch, but I really recommend it on kind of like a rainy day, kind of feeling kind of moping around. I really recommend it. Joe, we're gonna go with your number 8 and number 7 next.
Just kind of a caveat here. I really wanted to put because I know our restrictions are 2,000 above. I really wanted to put Truman Show on this because I really enjoyed it, but it just missed the timeline cutoff.
Now you would classify that as science fiction?
I mean, in the sense that like putting a dude in a bubble and just
Mhm.
watching him seems a little bit dystopian. I mean, if you're going with that.
You took the word right out of my brain.
And so it's almost like a human experiment that is quite interesting. And anyways, my number 8 is Safety Not Guaranteed. This
Okay.
is kind of this is one of the few I have a couple that are like sort of like, I guess, happier and a little bit more grounded movies.
Totally.
If you guys haven't watched this movie, Safety Not Guaranteed is about a quote unquote crazy dude who says he built a time machine, and they sent out a couple of people from like the news just to see what this guy's about, and I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but it's quite interesting. And so it's a very and like I don't necessarily consider it classic. Like this is like a classic science fiction. Almost, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be, but just because of how it ended and all that stuff, it seems like it to me. Um, it's felt like a low budget film, but at the same time, it was like kind of a diamond in the rough for me. I'm very surprised when I watched it because it was a little bit boring, kind of slow to start, but I really got into it, and it was very fun to watch. Recommend. Number 7 is also sort of like one of the few quote unquote happier movies. It's Limitless.
So, Eddie Mora, what's your secret?
Medication. I'm on special medication.
Just because I thought it'd be really cool if this was real. I think a lot of people would. A lot of people say Ritalin basically does the same thing, but in the sense that you have this pill that makes you mega super crazy smart, and the fact that he did all this crazy shit, and honestly, I feel like Bradley Cooper and drugs in movies seems like a big deal. 'Cause ever since I rewatched The Hangover and all that, and him getting fucked up, but it's just again very cool movie. When I first initially thought of it, conceptually, I was thinking, yeah, nah, I'm good, dog. But I watched it. I think the way they handled someone who takes a drug dependent superpower um, was really well done. And I think it's been done in a couple times before, but in the sense with Limitless, maybe because it's Bradley Cooper, maybe the way he did it. Again, big fan of Bradley Cooper. That's my number 7. Highly recommend Limitless.
Good good choices there. I have not seen Limitless. I've heard good things though.
Give it a shot. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
too long. It's not something I'd really. It's not like a watch a bunch of time sort of movie, which is why it's kind of lower on my list. But it's worth a look. It's worth a gander.
Totally. All right, Johnny, your number 8.
My number 8 has a weird title. It doesn't know what it wants to be. Either Live, Die, Repeat or Edge of Tomorrow. In either case, this is a Doug Liman movie that I think plays with the concept of time, and it does it really well. Tom Cruise stars in it. He gets to be a cocky little SOB, and then, you kind of feel for him towards the end, which those are usually the best Tom Cruise movies anyway. Emily Blunt gets to show off what a badass she is. This is the beginning of people seeing her more than just the secretary from Devil Wears Prada. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I just love the way they handled the whole Groundhog's Day thing without making it feel very repetitive. Doug Liman, who directed the movie, kind of knew when to let a scene go long and when to cut and let the audience know that, like, you understand we're repeating again and again, and we don't have to kind of get reset. And shockingly, it helps them move the movie along so well. So that one is my number 8 movie.
I'll speak more about Edge of Tomorrow for later, but
Hey.
yeah, it's man, I really like that movie. It's so good. Emily Blunt is such a badass. I don't know why she doesn't get more work like this, and I'll go on more of a rant later. But
busy being married, I guess.
I liked her Mary Poppins. She was great.
Yeah, I never watched that. I never found that to be quite like the whole genre of Mary Poppins to be terribly interesting. I'm sorry, that's just what it is.
Don't apologize. It's totally fine. Number 7, Johnny.
Number 7 is one of Pixar's best movies, and that's WALL-E. I love this movie. It is, and it's funny. The first time I watched it, I thought it was fine. I didn't really think it was all that great. I understood why people liked it, but it was like last year that I rewatched it, and I was like, shit, this movie's actually really good. You actually kind of predicted what the human race would be like as of right now. Fat, lazy people that just sit around and just watch them, right? The love story or love between Wally and Eve just really hits more home now than when I probably first initially watched it. The first half an hour of that movie is just like, if you were thinking of what a silent movie would look like in today's day and age, this is what it would look like. And the visuals really encapture what this future looks like. It ends up being a kid's movie, but I think this is one of the few ones, because Pixar does a lot of these, but there's ones where like you can cater to both kids and adults, and WALL-E is just ahead of its time. So that's my number 7.
My number 8 is, I think, the best Star Wars movie released in the last 20 years.
Oh, here we go.
It had the best story. It had the best characters. It got in, got out, told its story, had a great, just shitty sniveling villain behind it, and it had Diego Luna's beautiful face, and that's Rogue One.
There's a 26% chance of failure. How much further? I don't know, I'm not sure. I never really come this way. We're close, I know that. Well, now there's a 35% chance.
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I absolutely love Star Wars and everything. The sequel trilogy I'm sure we'll get into that at a later podcast, but it has its issues. Rogue One was such a great film and a good Star Wars film. And those are two really different things when you go over the history of Star Wars. The prequels trilogy, they weren't good films, and they were mediocre Star Wars films. Rogue One had a great story. You hear about it and you're like, God, why are they making this? It was during that time when
It makes
I think
sense.
I think it was Kathleen Kennedy was doing Solo, and then they were really pushing like the one a year. There's going to be a Star Wars movie, and then people just kind of got tired of it. Which, by the way, I will say Solo is way better than people give credit for. But
Nah, it
no.
is not.
No.
Oh my gosh, it's so.
It is not.
The
Solo
thing
is-
is, people shit on it. People
I
shit
think-
on it really hard, but it's better than that. That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. I think you guys need to watch Solo again. It's a fun heist, whatever, but it's a fun heist movie. The characters are good. I think it had not a lot good. I think going into it, people had a real negative because of a lot of the things that were released about it. But anyway, Rogue One is what you go to Star Wars expecting. It's gritty. It's grimy. It's a future or a past long time ago of it's lived in, and it has that feeling of all of these dynamics working for it, and these characters, this kind of group of people on this mission. It's just so good. Like, I will watch it over and over. It is probably number 2 behind Empire Strikes Back of my favorite Star Wars movies. Absolutely, hands down.
Just out of curiosity,
Mhm.
do any of you guys have like zombie films in your list? Like, I don't know if that's considered sci-fi, but it sort of is because like
I don't
making a movie-
actually. I don't think
Say that
so.
again. I'm sorry.
Do we have
I
any
was- do-
zombie films?
Like, because I don't know if you guys consider zombie, those like 28 Days Later sort of thing, sci-fi. I mean, I sort of do.
It can be
it totally
considered.
is.
I just don't.
I don't have any.
I don't either.
Right.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me circle back what Jared's saying. Like, Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie they made in the past 20 plus years, and the reason is that they allowed the ending to actually end naturally.
Mhm.
I think if there was more studio interference when it shouldn't be, then it might have been a different ending. But I think allowing the movie to end the way it did makes it so much better.
Yeah, movies are better when they're not setting up something for the future in a forced way.
Correct.
The Marvel films aren't forced. It's they created this universe of characters. Rogue One, when I say it got in and got out and did its job, that's what I mean. It had an ending, a hard ending that worked into the universe of Star Wars. It was great. Everything was a Star Wars movie. It was fantastic from front to back.
I agree with you on that, 100%.
Yeah, I can't wait till we do a filmography on Star Wars because we're gonna have
It's gonna be hours.
It's
long,
gonna be a knockdown drag
long.
out.
Oh Jesus.
My number 7 is a Tom Cruise movie, and a Steven Spielberg movie based on a Philip K. Dick novel.
a lot going on here.
Minority Report. Man,
great pick.
I fucking love this movie because of everything it does with the idea of precognition and the whole crime thing. And there's just so many memorable Spielberg moments in it. I feel it's really fun at the same time as being really dark. I don't know. This movie just really ticks all the boxes for me of it being sort of like a dystopian kind of future of, what's happening with all this precognition going on and all that. And I distinctly remember seeing this and just being kind of blown away of like, whoa, like it, to me, it's a really great Spielberg, like the just the small moments I remember, like Like when he gets his eyes redone, when he gets the eye transplant, and he goes and
Yeah.
he
Yes.
and he drinks like the
Oh,
rotten
the really
milk and
gross
like
ass shit.
it.
Ugh.
That is such like this like a Spielberg touch. You know what I mean? That those moments of levity, and man, I just wish like it's hard for me to divorce Tom Cruise from the characters he play, but I do it the best I can. But man, I love Minority Report. My trivia, my grandpa helped work on a lot of those car designs. My grandpa was a big car
Oh, no
designer
way. That is really cool.
for Ford back in the day. He was like a clay modeler, so
That is
he worked on a
awesome.
couple of things. And yeah, man, it's I love that movie. It's it's one of my favorites. We are number 6. Joe, give me your number 6 sci-fi movie of the last 20 years.
My again, every movie from now on is a very very difficult pick because you know we gotta push out a bunch of stuff. My number 6 is Mad Max Fury Road. To be honest, before watching this in theaters, I didn't really have a lot of background on Mad Max because there's a lot of history. And I watched this. I'm like, all right. It starts off like, all right, that's cool. It's kind of like sci-fi, and it just went. It just goes 1,000% like from minute 5, like without taking your foot off the pedal. Like it just goes hard all the time, and it was just insane. It was just it's like a movie on crack, and in a good way, in the sense that I didn't necessarily get lost. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It didn't really have me going, oh, I'm getting a little bit bored or anything. No, it was just like shit's crazy. Like this, they took a lot of things to the max extreme. They people dying all the time, people going nuts. They have the guy who's in charge of the fucking water in the desert. It's insane. And not only that, a lot of references in pop culture to this movie just because of how crazy it is, how well it did. I think that the casting was done well. I think the CGI was done well. I think the movie, the way it was presented and how it ended, awesome movie. Awesome movie.
Yeah,
And
I'm definitely gonna have more to say on this later, but great pick, Joe.
dude, I mean, I don't know. Like honestly, this movie could be 1 to 5 sometimes, just depending on how I feel.
It really combines traditional filmmaking, practical effects with digital effects, the best I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, 100%. But it was just I forget why, because for a lot of these movies, and I really depend on friends to be like, hey, we're gonna go watch this movie. I'm like, okay, because I'm more of a I'll take it as I go. And I think it might have been Jeff, but he was like, "Yeah, this is gonna be a great movie." I was like, "All right, cool, let's go." And I'm like, "Whoa, that was really good." Because I was thinking, "Oh, Tom Hardy, awesome. Charlize Theron, awesome." So that's really the reason I kind of went in there. I'm like, "Whoa, this was." My expectation wasn't necessarily low. It was just like, "Oh, it's gonna be pretty cool," and it just exceeded expectations, and it did a great job. And so that's my number 6. My number 5, I actually this is Jeff is another reason I watch this as well. It's Ex Machina.
Do you have a name?
Yes. Ava.
Again, I went into this movie thinking, oh, okay, this is an interesting sci-fi robot movie, but just for people who don't know, Turing test is just seeing how AI works and how close it is to being human. I really hope that, by the way, that never happens, because I feel like that's gonna kind of blur the lines of what's real and what's machine a little bit too much. But this plays with that aspect, the fact that it really messed with the guy. By the way, both these guys are in Star Wars now. I don't know how that worked out. I don't know if they're contracted together, but just the whole idea of getting confused with machines and AI and what's real and what's not, um, and it didn't have a lot of people in it. It had a lot of quiet moments. It kind of messed with your mind a lot. The way it ended was like, oh no, oh no. It just sort of gets unraveled really quickly. But I don't know. It's like a very classic sci-fi movie that kind of checked all the boxes for me. And I think that I don't know, Alex Garland he's just great job all around. But
It gave us some great Oscar Isaac dancing memes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You bust my ass on this dance floor, but I don't know.
Dog.
I mean, Gleason is sort of like he kind of came on. I feel like he kind of exploded onto the film thing for me personally in terms of watching movies, because he came into Star Wars, he did this movie. Same thing with Oscar Isaac. I don't like he does everything now. I feel like, and I don't really before maybe 2010. I didn't really watch a lot of things from him. And again, I'm a big fan of Alicia Vikander. So cast wise, big fan. Story wise, big fan. Like just the way everything looked, big fan. But highly recommend. That's my number 5.
Good choice. Johnny, you are up, sir.
Number 6. It's funny. So these next two movies are movies that if this were to happen in the real world, my wife would hate. She hates
28 days later.
Robots or
Uh-oh.
AIs
Okay.
taking over. Okay. So at number 6, I have Spike Jonze as her.
Oh, okay.
I absolutely love
What
this
a romantic
movie. I
film.
think, yeah, well, she doesn't like the fact that Scarlett Johansson's an AI whispering into Joaquin Phoenix's ear.
Yeah.
I've gone on dates.
Well, then you can go on one with this woman, and then you could tell me all about it. You could kiss her.
And just being a real human. But I think that's kind of blurs the line when it comes to this, is like when does AI become real enough to where it can experience human emotion, human connection? And I thought exploring that was really well done. Spike Jonze, he is a great director in terms of, like, if you ever watch any of his music videos, it's solid, right? So this was like a really big kaleidoscope of like music vignettes that he has, and the fact that he had Arcade Fire doing the soundtrack to all this made it even better. That's why the music and the images with this movie works so well. But the acting performances, Joaquin Phoenix does a lot of the heavy lifting because he's by himself and he's talking to Scarlett Johansson, right? And Scarlett Johansson's like off to the side. You're not really seeing her. But she had to sell it as well. You had little bit players like Amy Adams, who we talked about a lot, Olivia Wilde's in this movie as well. So I absolutely love this. That's my number 6.
Good pick.
At number 5, like I said, another movie that my wife would be scared of, and I agree with Joe. It is Ex Machina. That movie, if an AI actually took over, it's game over, right?
Don't give them knives. That's really what it is.
Right.
No, we got to make sure that the cords are short enough so that if they come
when they walk away,
just unplug.
Don't give them batteries. That's what it is.
That's Dwight's joke from The Office.
Yeah. He's smart man.
I mean, Alicia Vikander is so good in this movie. Like,
totally.
This is when we kind of figure out, like Joe was talking about, like with the Turing test, right? I thought she blended, like she had to convince us that she is an android, but he's forming to be human, and I think that interplay worked really well. The only problem I had, Gleason was fine, but he was the weakest one out of the 3, to be honest with you, because Vikander was here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then Oscar Isaac is just like, he steals every scene he comes.
There's this like tone of menace, like just menace under the surface of that movie at all times when you're watching it. You're really sure. You're very uncomfortable watching that movie. At least when
it's intentional. I think that's what they wanted.
And it's just like, I was like, fuck, what's going to happen? Is it going to happen right now? I don't like, it was, it's a very uncomfortable watch.
But I mean, that's what they're trying to do. It's
totally,
sci-fi horror. And if anything, I think like a lot of Japanese films do that, where they try to like, they don't really scare you, but they say they're going to scare you. You have a feeling of scare you, so you're just fucking stressed for the whole movie sometimes.
It's a lot like Midsommar and
oh my god,
Hereditary.
Yo, Midsommar. Oh my god, that movie was just stressful to watch. It was just like
absolutely.
It was just, I had to pause for a couple times, take a drink of water. Oh my god, great film though. That's a good pick too, if you ever pick that one.
All right, good picks, Johnny. My number 6 is the only Marvel movie on my list, and that's Guardians of the Galaxy.
You have the bearing of a man of honor.
Well, I wouldn't say that. People say it about me.
Excellent.
I remember seeing this because I was like, there's no fucking way they can make a movie out of these guys. What is going on? And I sat down, and he starts dancing to Redbone in the opening, and I'm losing it. It was so funny, and I was hooked from minute 1. it was such an easy watch. And that's most of those Marvel movies are easy to watch, but this was an enjoyable, easy watch. And some of them get caught up in their own kind of lore and that kind of stuff. And this one didn't. And it had to introduce all these new characters. It had to, get you on their side. I loved the prison break scene.
Yeah.
It is definitely in my top 5 favorite Marvel movies. Just because it's so good and fun. And I remember I saw it for a second time in theater. I was like, Dad, come on, we got to watch. I don't know, the superhero. I go, it's not a superhero movie. Trust me. And I brought him along, and he would, as soon as that same moment in the very beginning when he's dancing, and my dad was rolling. It's any movie I feel that can do that and like kind of bridge that kind of gap with these superhero movies. Cause like, fuck, my dad's not going to like Doctor Strange or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
Just way too out there. Is that why?
Yeah. And the soundtrack helped it. Those are so many bangers on that soundtrack, and the characters were really, James Gunn knows what he's doing. And I feel Guardians 2 got a little bit lost in under its own weight. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't think the story was there or as good as the first one, but I still think it was enjoyable. But Guardians of the Galaxy is my number 6.
How do you feel about like the fact that they're making a bunch more, or maybe not a bunch more, but
I think it's fine. I think adding Thor to it is a nice little kind of wild card.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice addition to the whole thing, and they've rebooted Gamora, right? Because she's the Gamora from another timeline.
Correct,
so
yes.
You get a different kind of relationship there.
You like the first one more than the second one, and you think the third one won't be as good as the other two?
I don't know. Honestly, I think it could be. But
okay.
I trust James Gunn.
Yeah, you're right.
My number 5 is District 9. And
man, that's a creepy movie too.
How I talked about how Guardians was and Rogue One and everything was an easy to watch movie. This movie isn't easy to watch per se. It's all shot, most of it's shot in handheld, shaky cam.
Right.
A lot of it's documentary film style, kind of where, they're going along with Copley's, main character of the, bullying the aliens and that kind of stuff. And I remember having to like kind of look down because I was getting motion sick in the theater watching for the first time.
Shaky camera thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that doesn't really get me most of the time, but
yeah.
I put it on my list because I think about that movie a lot from when I'm thinking about sci-fi in general and how the genre is there to say things about our culture and to comment on it and everything like that, and how it's a little cartoonish at times, but the critique on like xenophobia and apartheid and everything like that, it was so masterfully done. I think when his slow transition into an alien is horrifying.
Weird. Yeah, it's like a metamorphosis.
It's amazing and horrifying and so well done. I love a lot of moments about this movie, and I just think Neil Blomkamp just knocked it out of the park on this one.
It was good,
and it's
very
pretty amazing.
Good. Very
good. The xenophobia is like really in your face about it, and it makes no qualms of like you showing it to us, and that really moved a lot. But I mean, it's actually a really good pick. I just think Neil Blomkamp like really blew it. This dude was on his way
absolutely
to become one of the best
sci-fi
directors out there.
Happened?
I mean,
I know
Elysium was fine. Depends is fine, but
Chappie
is absolutely terrible.
Big old thumbs down.
Cost him the Halo movie.
Yeah.
Cost him the Alien movie.
Wait. Just because he shit the bed on one movie. Is that why?
2 movies. Elysium was a financial disaster.
So wait, so the film itself was okay. It just financially did terribly.
People panned it pretty hard. I think it was okay. It wasn't as bad.
What was the
looking
reason
back,
it did so
but,
poorly?
I mean, it
It
just
was
District 9.
mediocre. Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't District 9. It wasn't. People were expecting a follow up to that because I mean he did say he was going to follow up on it, but he never did. It was that District 9 was based on. I think it was based on his short story Tales from Joburg. I think that's what it was called. I can't remember, but I just love how intense and heartbreaking and great District 9 is.
Yeah.
I mean, lightning in a bottle, I guess. Right. Sucks that it happened.
All right, we're in our top 4, gentlemen.
Top 4.
We're in our top 4. Joe, what is your number 4?
I guess I don't know how you feel about this, but I was a big fan of Force Awakens.
Chewie, we're home.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. It just because look, it's I don't know. It's sort of like
it's fun.
It's a reboot. Yeah, it was a fun movie to watch.
For having a drought of that long of Star Wars movie, and you watch it, you're like, oh, fuck! Like, it's fun.
I think a lot has to be said with the fact that yes, it's the first movie to sort of come back after a many number of years. I'm not saying that this is better than the ones in the past. I'm not saying that at all because we're looking at the 20-year timeline, I suppose. It's just that it's first come out. It introduced a lot of people. It introduced a story. A lot of people have very mixed feelings about this current set of 3, which I have to agree with. But out of the 3, I think I enjoyed this the most. I think I had a lot of fun with it. I think that in terms of start to finish, it started well and finished well, with everyone included. And I think that because always the first Star Wars of a trilogy in this set is always going to be sort of setting up a lot of things for the next couple things. And I think for a lot of trilogies in general that are predetermined, they fall into the issue of let's make this giant thing but make the movie kind of cut short because they know that they're going to have to make the other stuff. But in itself, when looking at it in a bubble, I think that Force Awakens does a pretty good job of being sort of like being on its own 2 legs. But that's sort of what I think of that movie. And in terms of just sort of fun big blockbuster movies, this is probably the only one on my list in terms of that way. Everything else is kind of not so big in terms of, I guess, Star Wars.
I think that this movie is so fun and fine. It's not. It's completely unoffensive.
It's a great way to put it.
It was made to get everybody back in the theaters and being like, guys, Star Wars, it's back. It's not the prequels.
Right. And so, like, in terms of like something called, if you guys know what space opera is, just the whole idea of flying around big ships and shooting shit and all that sort of stuff. That it was just fun to watch, and it's at no point in time where I'm thinking like I wish I didn't watch this, or I got bored or anything like that. And I don't know if I'm getting older, but it's been happening more frequently than it was when I was younger. None of these movies I felt that way, but that's sort of my litmus test for whether or not a movie's good. But again, Force Awakens, I just think it did a great job, and I think it deserves in the top 10, especially with everything it did. My number 3 might be a little bit controversial. I would say it's a movie called Looper. Just because I think I'm sort of a big fan of this whole fucking with the timeline sort of thing and going back in time. I think that they did an very interesting job with Joseph Gordon-Levitt with how to close a loop, and the fact that there's jobs for this.
I was looking at photos today of that movie because I was like, oh yeah, Looper. And the prosthetics they put on him were like, I remember they did
a trip. like his lips or something,
Well,
or
they
like
try
something.
it like the brow, his forehead. They tried to make him
Yeah,
look like a
like the
younger Bruce Willis.
yeah, exactly.
Another Ryan Johnson
Mhm.
jam, right?
Yep.
It's. I mean, I don't know if necessarily that's like the easiest way to do it. If anything, you should have just cast a dude that looks like an older Joseph Gordon-Levitt, or vice versa. But I get that you got to have two sort of like A-listers to be in there to kind of promote the movie and all that. But um, I there's a lot of movies out there that kind of mess with time and going back in time and dealing with messing with your yourself, and we're not all that kind of stuff. But I think this is one of the few that actually has the thing where it's like, all right, your job is to go back in time and fix XYZ, and at the end you have to fix your own looper,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So it's sort of like conceptually it made sense to me, because I think with a lot of movies that deal with this kind of topic, there's a lot of people kind of pick it apart in terms of, oh, what about X, what about this, what about this,
Mm-hmm.
what about this, and it sort of gets lost, and it kind of unravels itself and kind of gets all over the place. But I think the fact that they added the idea of closing your own loop and not messing with time per se in that sense, made it a more of a neater movie for me, in terms of all that stuff. So that's how I feel about it.
Johnny, was that Ryan Johnson's first big kind of blockbuster movie? In my
Yeah,
mind, I think it was, right?
it was. Yeah, because
Before
before
that, he
that it
had Brick.
was Brick. So
Huh.
without Looper, you don't get The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So
And you don't
I
get
mean,
Knives
unless
Out.
you call the Brothers Bloom a
Yeah.
hit.
No,
right?
I love Knives Out.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it
So
was
good.
fantastic.
I mean, because there's a sequel coming out, right?
Mhm.
Two of them. So yeah, he signed with Ryan Johnson, negotiated a very good deal for not only him, but for Daniel Craig as well. Because the next two movies, the stipulation is he gets paid, Daniel Craig gets paid, and the budget has to stay the same as when they made the first movie.
I can't help but think that role was specifically written for Kevin Spacey. And then all that shit went down. And then Daniel Craig.
Again, going back to what I said before, as purely as an actor.
No, I don't want to. Johnny, you're number 4, bud.
So number 4 is Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. I absolutely love this movie.
I was wondering when this was going to show up.
There you go.
You guys were talking about time dilation. That whole sequence is really moving to me. Up until that point, I think he had me enthralled in terms of the cornfield chase in the beginning, as they're trying to track down this drone, is very Spielberg-like. When we talk about sci-fi, I thought that was really well done.
Good call.
Then you get to the hard science, which is really good. But to me, what sold and what makes me love the movie so much is just the whole sequence of them going to the ice planet. They wake up Matt Damon, right? And then that whole sequence of, preservation of humanity and talking about what they should do, what's good for them versus what's good for humankind, and then interplay it with the space chase that happened, because that whole docking sequence, I think, like Joe and I have talked about it before, is just, to me,
Stressful.
It's stressful, but a masterwork in directing, in acting, in film scoring, in film editing. That whole scene itself was just done really well. The ending, yes, I get people have qualms with it. I just believe that if you were into the movie, those first 2/3, the last third of the movie, you will suspend your disbelief and just take it with what's happening towards the end. But yeah, I absolutely love Interstellar, and I'm shocked that I have it at number 4. I think the other 3 movies ahead of it, I think, are
that's kind of how it is with top
more
fives.
enjoy. So yeah.
I mean, when you're making your top 10 and you go to your top 5, a lot of times it could be interchangeable because they're so close, and it's all personal preference and things like so.
Yeah.
Number 3, I have Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. This movie,
another time
absolutely
movie.
Excellent. When they deal with time, and for the way it works within this movie, it made sense to me. You get disoriented in the beginning of the movie, and then as it goes along, the connection between her making, with the aliens and kind of trying to understand language, and you kind of have this doomsday with them trying to beat China before everything else happens. I thought it was expertly well done. Amy Adams, it's funny because she plays a linguistics professor in this movie, but a lot of this movie is very much about her facial expressions, especially her eyes. Like, you have to kind of believe everything that's happening with her there. The score, absolutely fantastic, by Johansson. I just think this is probably, if this movie made me believe that Blade Runner 2049 was going to work and that Dune is going to be great, because Denis Villeneuve showed that like he understands sci-fi in terms of creating a big scope, but also being able to tell smaller stories within that scope to make us feel as well. So
completely agreed. If Dune's going to work, it's going to get the people into the theater by promising big action. There's going to be some action, but it's going to succeed on the way the character interactions and the way the characters are conveyed on the screen. Good. That's a great point, Johnny.
It's one of those movies where I was just like, it's very rare that my jaw just like kind of drops within the last 5-10 minutes of a movie for good. I've had my jaw drop for bad.
Oh,
but
yeah. Right?
the last 10 minutes of that movie, I was just like, oh shit. It makes a lot of sense. Like it just hits you in like waves. At least it did for me. And so, I just, there's only 2 other movies better than this that I think, but like this is, Denis Villeneuve is such a great director, and the cast is just so great. So I have this at number 3.
My number 4 is actually, my next few are movies we've talked about previously, so I won't spend too much time on them.
Yeah, I figured that happened.
Number 4 is Edge of Tomorrow. Again, why don't we have Emily Blunt in more of these movies? She's an absolute badass.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that they do the Groundhog Day formula so well in this movie. It's fun and intense, and all of that role. Because like when I first saw it, I was like, I do you remember when it came out and it was getting really good reviews, and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, what the hell does Edge of Tomorrow?
What is this? Like, it's like, what, Tom Cruise in a mech suit? Like, I didn't get it.
Well, how do you feel about Tom Cruise though, in general?
Well, like I said, I'm not a big fan of Tom Cruise the person. I love Mission Impossible movies.
Wait, you're allowed to say that, but I can't say that about the other thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
But Tom Cruise is he makes these movies that are really watchable. For all his faults, it's like, fuck, Mission Impossible, I'm gonna watch the shit out of that. I remember the last Mission Impossible that came out, I was like, we're seeing this on IMAX. My girlfriend was like, what? I go, we're seeing this on IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
But Edge of Tomorrow is there's he plays such a good shit heel, you know what I mean? In the beginning of that movie,
a shit heel, I like that. Yeah,
he's just a dick. He's an asshole in that movie, and then the more and more and more, and man, Emily Blunt, again, I'm coming back to her. She is so fantastic. Get more work for Emily Blunt, because I don't know, she needs to be in everything, because I think she's so good.
I would think that it's not the sense that she's not getting offers. It's more like she's just picking what she wants to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I have no doubts that she's an excellent actress. It's just probably what it is.
My number 3, Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah. Love it.
Like I said, I watched the first part of that movie the other day. First off, it takes a lot of balls to make a movie almost 3 hours long that's a sequel to Blade Runner. A movie that also didn't do very well when it came out. It was not critically acclaimed. I mean, it ended up being critically acclaimed, but I remember
cult following, right?
But it wasn't like a huge blockbuster when it came out, from what I understand. I mean, I could be very wrong about that, but that very beginning with Dave Bautista, and it sets the tone for the movie so well. And then he comes back to get his baseline, And I feel everybody was cast perfectly in that movie. I feel that Ryan Gosling was the perfect replicant for that movie. The one thing that I think would have made it number one for me. So Jared Leto is in this movie. I'm not a big Jared Leto fan, but the character was originally written for David Bowie, and R.I.P. David
Really?
Bowie had passed
Yeah, right.
away when this came out. And I just can't help but think how fucking
How
amazing
good it could have been. Yeah.
David Bowie would be in that role.
Yeah.
And it just breaks my heart. We're living in a timeline where that just doesn't happen. I think the idea to not make him the chosen one, or the, whatever, the Kwisatz Haderach for my Dune fans out there of this movie, was so smart. It would have been cloying. It would have been cheesy. It would have just been a big eye roll. But I think that was the smart play. And I just can't believe that they made a close to 3-hour sequel to Blade Runner. And yeah.
A lot of people are saying it's more of an art, like it's an art piece.
Oh
Just
yeah, it's an art house film for sure.
Colors and just all that things. I mean, it's beautiful. It's like it's almost as if you could take big screenshots of giant parts of the movie, and those can all be posters.
I had a like when they're in like kind of the deserty area. I had that in my big beautiful monitor for a while in 4K. Joe, your number 2.
Yeah, not much to say about number 2. It's Blade Runner 2049. I'm gonna just kind of echo what a lot of people said before. I think that the movie in terms of cinematography was great. I think the casting was done great. I think the risk of redoing, again, like you said, redoing a movie that not necessarily did that well very, very long ago was kind of a risky move, but they made it work. I like the fact that they made Gosling the main character, but not necessarily the saving grace or the savior in this movie. That was kind of a nice twist. Just everything on there, just kind of the protagonist kind of chasing him around to figure out what's going on, and like this dystopian future. It was really good, and I like that throughout the movie that there are almost like color schemes kind of as you go along. Like there's this bright orange area, bright green area, bright dark, very dark area, etc. Very white, and I think a lot of that was intentional, and it was kind of like easy on the eyes and all that kind of stuff. So um, I watched the original Blade Runner. I thought that it was very good. When they remade it, I think also they did an excellent job as well. So that's my number 2. Not much to say
Joe,
other than I agree with everyone you guys say. What's up?
Joe, I have a question about your original Blade Runner watching. Did you notice anything about that movie? Did you or dislike anything about that movie?
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's whenever I watch a movie that it's from '82, so it was like 35 years ago. I mean, aside from the fact that they had Harrison Ford in both movies, I don't know. I sort of watched it. I watched it with no information going into it, because what I actually ended up doing was I watched Blade Runner 2049. I was like, all right, that's really cool. I'm gonna check out the other one. Checked out the other one. I was like, oh yeah, this is really cool too. And so I don't know. That's it. It was I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what you're getting at. But
So no, I ask because I feel I recommend the original Blade Runner to people, but I think they have this idea in their head that it's going to be a nonstop action. Yeah, shoot them up, hunt those replicants.
Oh
but
yeah,
it's
but
not.
It's not at
It
all.
is a slow pace noir where there's maybe 1 or 2
like
action,
really
quote unquote,
explosive
in
scenes.
the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it's more about, it's a very introspective kind of, and then the whole discussion of like, okay, well, which version did you watch? Did you watch this? Did you watch
God.
if you want to watch a terrible version of Blade Runner, watch the one where he has the original cut. He has an internal monologue. It's terrible. It's like, oh my God.
I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know why they made like the 8 or 9 whatever versions of Blade Runner.
It's because the studio interference, and people, they were like, oh, they're not going to understand it, so they made Harrison Ford do this like like the worst kind of narration. You can tell he didn't want to do it, but it
You know, it's the thing is though, it's interesting when you're watching a movie back then because in the future it's 2019 at the
yeah,
time,
for sure.
the trip, but
I want my flying car, damn it.
I'm trying to figure out whether or not at the time this was considered like a quote unquote risky movie to do. Like he really went out on a limb to do something because I think a lot of people when they're thinking Blade Runner, they're thinking sci-fi shoot 'em up, right? But it's more, it's like a quiet storytelling movie with shoot 'em ups in it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why it didn't necessarily do as well as it could have done. I mean, it did all right. And I think that after like the first couple weekends in the theater, people are kind of looking at it and they thought of it and the kind of rose tinted glasses sort of thing, and they're like, oh, this is actually a pretty good movie. And over time it kind of got a cult following, and I think that part I understand. So I just I think that I liked what they tried to do. I liked what Ridley Scott was trying to do, and I get it. I'll just put it. I get it, but that's why.
Yeah, I think one of the big things about Blade Runner, at least with the original cut, is because the studio saw it and they're like, "This is an Alien," because he made Alien 2 years before, and Alien is a whole completely different type of sci-fi movie, and so that's what they thought they were getting with Blade Runner, and that was not what they were getting.
Yeah.
And so that's when studios come in, but hey, fifth time's the charm with his cut. Says that's the cut that he made the definitive movie of. So
okay, well, there you go.
Johnny, what is your number 2?
Number 2 is a Tom Cruise movie with Steven Spielberg, like Jared said before. It is Minority Report. It is, to me, this is the last great Spielberg movie that he's done.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, like I would like it is pure Spielberg in terms of the fun enjoyment. Having Tom Cruise in it is really good. I love the idea of the precogs, pre-crime. Is it, if you were able to prevent it, would you do it? And what kind of sides on? Gave me young Colin Farrell. Like this is like his first step into the scene.
Really? This is his first for Colin Farrell?
Well, this is when everyone started noticing who he was.
Wow.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, so Colin Farrell was in it. Yeah, I hated him into that story until I realized what he was trying to do, and I'm like, oh, damn. Which made the character writing really well done. Max von Sydow is always good. That's in it. I just, not only about those questions, but the action scenes, they're really fun to watch, especially the first time they were trying to stop Tom Cruise. I just love that they used the jet fighter plaques. It feels very, the stunt work was done really well. The whole fighting in the car factory I thought was really good as well. And like I said, the little moments, like with him drinking the milk, which is gross, the scanners going around checking everybody's eye. That was a very suspenseful scene.
How
going
creepy!
Through.
Oh god!
Like those little things. Like this is Spielberg at his best. Like
down
it is
to the
so
drugs,
good.
down to the drugs he's using. That's my favorite shit in sci-fi. Like in a video game or like Fallout or anything, are like those little, like the drug names and how they use them, and just having a world be lived in. That's what I was talking about Rogue One. It is a lived in world of Star Wars where these people are at the market. They're, and you can tell that there's a history there. It's the same thing with Minority Report. You can tell that they went down this road of just dystopian precognition bullshit that you can totally see how that would happen too.
Yeah, and this was the first time that I distinctly, like Joe was talking about, when it comes to color palettes with Blade Runner 2049. This is the first time I remember watching a movie where the colors felt muted. And I didn't understand why. And when I think about it, him starting to film digital, but then creating this world where you just can't really see clearly, and that kind of plays off with the whole themes, right? With precog, it's great. This movie is just absolutely fantastic.
My number 2 is a movie we've talked about before. My number 2 is Mad Max Fury Road.
I live, I die, I live again.
We've covered it on a podcast before, so I won't go too far into it. But, I mentioned it before in the podcast. The filmmaking I appreciate, the fact that it's one giant chase scene for the whole movie. Furiosa is the most incredible character I feel that's come out in a long time. Like my eyes were glued to the screen whenever she was on there. The world that was created, it didn't feel forced. Like there was what, like 30 years between the movies, I
Yeah.
think the last
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
The last one.
And it just picks up with just the craziest stuff. And I'm kind of bummed out there probably won't be another one, but I really
Give it
really
the 30 years.
this is the movie that I use to test out my sound system at home. This is the movie that I can just put on. There's the sections of this movie, it doesn't matter which one you see, it's instantly rewatchable. The it's got the environmental thing of, everyone's dependent on oil, the nuclear weapons and everything like that. It's just, I love it. I love the lore. I love everything. And yeah. So
Preaching to the choir here, I think.
Yeah,
we're all
absolutely.
feeling the same thing.
So that was my number 2. Joe, what is your
Yeah, sorry to it's gonna be boring again. My Minority Report's my number 1. It's just that I think it kind of sets the standard for what sci-fi should be, and the fact that it held up for so many years, the fact that it conceptually with those little weird like pool balls coming out for Tom Cruise to look at time and try to look into a certain amount of time to do all that. A great film. They have all those crazy parts with the eye, with the gross food, and him trying to like fuck up his face so he doesn't get facial recognition, and trying to evade the very thing he worked with is awesome. Action film was great. It kind of checked all the boxes on what I want to be a sci-fi movie to be about. And whenever I watch a sci-fi movie, I've always wanted to be like, all right, are there things that in it that I liked it as much as I liked Minority Report, and and just kind of repeating what Johnny said. I agree with everything he said. I think that it's everything that he did there. And I know Tom Cruise did an excellent job there. I didn't realize it was Colin Farrell's first one, but again, awesome job. Conceptually, it was great. Kind of like a unique take at the time of a sort of a quote unquote time movie. I wouldn't necessarily call it like a time travel movie per se, but it sort of is. But yeah, awesome movie. That being said, I'm a little sad that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is not on any of our lists, given our things. But
Not
it's
close.
the movie
and then now
wasn't.
it's a comedy. It's a comedy. I get it. But I was
Well,
hoping that
the only good part of that movie probably was
Most Def,
Most Def, man.
Alan Rickman's portrayal
that's
of
of the really bummed robot.
But Most Def, actually, Most Def was pretty.
It was, I mean, just kind of side topic with that movie. It was kind of like a very what the fuck movie of anything. It's like who. Like I understand it's based off a book and that sort of thing, and it's supposed to be a comedy, but I just thought that it was kind of funny. But
The book is fantastic. If you've never read or listened to the book, fucking highly recommend. It
Again,
is so great.
The sci-fi movie that this podcast is based on is not on our top 10. I thought it was kind of interesting, but that's my number 1 for Minority Report. Big fan, huge fan, awesome movie.
Johnny, you are up for your number 1.
I have a different movie when I want to test out my
All
sound
right,
system.
here we go.
And it's Hans Zimmer just banging a loud gong towards it. It's Inception. Like, to me, this is the best movie in the 2000s and beyond of sci-fi. Dream within the dream. I feel like this is like the height of what Christopher Nolan has done when we're thinking about his filmography. It's so good. Not only is it a heist movie, it is a sci-fi movie, and it plays within its own rules. He created them really well. And like I said, think of trailers today. Inception is the reason why you get like these long trailers with like the sounds and kind of creating different ideas. Like a cast is top notch. Leonardo DiCaprio is really good in it. Same thing with Marion Cotillard. Tom Hardy, we get introduced. This is when everyone found out who Tom Hardy is, right? Didn't realize Joseph Gordon-Levitt can be a badass as the guy that does the dirty work.
He was cool as shit in that movie.
I absolutely love this movie. I think that when I was debating between this and Minority Report, which one would I keep watching? I think this one is the one that I would keep watching for on spinning that totem pole, everything. So I absolutely love this movie. I don't know what there is more to say.
All right. That's I was debating putting that one on my list, but Rogue One made it on.
I felt the same way. Like it was again
It was definitely there.
It's an awesome film.
And the way, like, who else is gonna make a fucking hallway in real time that's gonna spin?
That was amazing. Like, I saw behind the scenes on that. It was amazing.
Yeah, just so the set pieces, and I think that's why I think this is the best of what Nolan's done, is because this was still him still being given somewhat of a budget, and he maximizes what that budget can do. And when you watch that scene, it feels real because it was happening.
Yeah. There's weight to it. There's that weight that practical effects give. It's awesome. My number one is a big old bummer of a movie.
Oh no.
It kind of has, again, the theme of xenophobia going through it. It has the theme, it is a dystopian future. It was made or directed by Alfonso Cuarón, and it is 2006's Children of Men. Children of Men.
Clive Owen.
Children of Men is, I want to say, in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. It's a brutal movie. It is possibly my favorite, the movie that has my favorite cinematography in it. It's a movie that for a little bit there, I thought we were on a crash course going towards. There's imagery in this movie that is at both times beautiful and terrifying. This is a movie that is just unparalleled in my mind in the way it tells its story and the way that it conveys what it wants to convey and just everything. It's I just think that it's one of the bleakest films ever. Like it's really, I'm a sucker for depressing movies, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind kind of stuff. But this movie, when you watch it, it's a gut punch. I love the little touches of the famous Pink Floyd stuff in there, and like it's really a Britain of 20. I think it was set in the movie. It's 2027. Everybody's infertile, and Clive Owen's job is to usher the only pregnant girl that's been around to these freedom fighters, and it's the story of that. And I remember watching it for the first time and going, he's not cutting, the camera has not cut. And like my favorite thing in movies is when it's a one take shot, and there are several in this movie that absolutely are the craziest and most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I love this movie. I cannot recommend it enough. Go watch it.
Yeah, the cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki, like if you're looking for one shot masterclass, this is the actual movie I would show people to. And it's funny, we talked about this other movie before. So he filmed Children of Men with Alfonso Cuarón, but he also did Birdman with Inarritu. And there's a difference between, even though he does the same thing, there's a different feel from both directors on how they use it.
Yeah.
Right.
Children of Men is a lot more grounded in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, Johnny.
Yeah, but I was going to say, so there's a lot, but there's 2 key scenes that he does. The first one in the car, and then the one where he's helping him escape. To me, the flashier one was the second one. Mm-hmm. The innovative one was the first one in the car, because that was really the idea of the cars moving, and they had to time everything. It was just actually well done, but you don't even think about it because you're sitting there watching, going with them, and then you just realize it after the scene cuts away because they show a different locale at that point, but you don't ever realize it until it actually happens after it happens.
Partway through, Clive Owen's character wakes up and Julianne Moore, his ex-wife, is kind of flirting with him. They're kind of going back and forth in this whole thing, and you realize kind of partway through they're like, oh, they haven't cut yet, and then it pans in it, the camera rotates forward, and then you see the shit going on. It starts, and then like it's not cutting, and I don't know about you, but I start to feel really anxious of like, oh god, like shit's going down, and like it draws you in, and it really makes you feel a part of that scene. And and the same thing with the second one. The second one, it's like a ballet that they were doing, and it was so beautiful to watch them kind of going through this battlefield and kind of running across the street and these bombed out buildings and everything. It was unreal to watch. And I'm thinking about it right now, and I'm getting like anxious thinking about it, because it's what that's what long shots are supposed to do. It's supposed to draw you in. It's supposed to make you feel a part of the movie, and it absolutely did it. It's my favorite science fiction movie of the last 20 years, hands down.
Fertility, man. Like the concept of having like a future where humanity can't breed anymore. Is a very, very cool concept. Sad, but cool.
Yeah, it's and it's the themes are, it's a little over the top with its religious imagery at times and that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, we get it, blah blah blah, but it's like, I just remember very specific parts of it. Like he's going through that checkpoint and they bag the people over the, they put the black hoods over them,
right,
and like kind of drag them away. And it's just so intense when you see that, and you see what the fuck's been happening for the past 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
It's insane. And it's like, good sci-fi is a critique of reality in my mind.
I like that.
Yeah, that was our top 10s. Do we want to try to make 5 out of these?
From what I heard,
Minority Report.
There's a couple movies. Yeah. Minority Report belongs on this list.
Absolutely.
Same thing with Mad Max Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You guys have them way higher than I do, but I understand why. So
was Interstellar on all 3 lists?
No, Interstellar was not on my list.
Okay.
So we have
Blade Runner was on all our lists? No.
Yeah, I think it was.
In different
sections.
Areas. I think you both have them in the top 5.
Blade Runner's in my top 5.
I have it at number 10.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I think, judging from your guys' top 5, I think Mad Max, Blade Runner 2049, and Minority Report,
they're locks. I think
they're locks that are in there. So that leaves 2 spots that are open.
How do you guys feel about? Was Ex Machina was just me, huh?
Mm-hmm.
No, I had Ex Machina.
Yeah,
well, I had it at 5.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm fine with 5.
Ex Machina
being the 5th one.
I think I'm fine with Ex Machina at 5. I think that's.
I think the screenwriting to that movie is just
it's really good. Excellent. Oscar Isaac just being a fucking weirdo in that movie. I love it.
He did a good job being a weirdo.
So that would leave 1 spot open. Now, if we were to somehow get a Christopher Nolan movie in here, and I know how Jared feels about Christopher Nolan sometimes,
it's Inception.
I would want Inception in there. As much as I love Interstellar, Inception is just a greater movie.
Would you want Inception to be number 4?
If anything, I think we put Inception at number 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
We put Inception at 5.
And Ex Machina number 4.
Ex Machina at 4. So that leaves these 3.
I
am the big proponent of Minority Report being at number 1.
I would.
I had it as
my number 1.
It was you chose number 1. It was my number 2. And Jared had it on his list. It wasn't in the top. It was in the top 10. But then the reason why but that also depends if you think Mad Max should be at number 1. That's the one movie I don't have on my list.
I don't think. Judging by how you guys felt about Minority Report and the strong push for it, I'm fine with Mad Max at number 2.
Okay.
I don't think Blade Runner is a number 1 or number 2. I think it's a strong number 3.
So Minority Report, Mad Max, then Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Good shit. Good
so
shit.
I think number 5 is what did we say? Inception.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Ex Machina. Number 3, Blade Runner, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Number 2, we had Mad Max Fury Road. And number 1, Minority Report. Damn.
Great picks.
That's a solid list there, guys. We got
That's
horror
a
in there. We
good
got
list.
all kinds of stuff in there. I
Sort of
think this
touch
is
base
one
on
of our
everything.
I think this is one of our best lists yet.
Or maybe that's our favorite genre here with sci-fi of the three of us.
I don't know. Yeah, I just there's a lot to these movies, and I think we cut a really good swath in the genre. Is there anyone here for you two that almost made the list or didn't quite, and you were really judging about? Just one, if you want to pick one of them. Joe, you got one?
So oh god. So honestly, it was kind of weird because there was a lot of movies I'm like, all right, this is my top 5, and I'm thinking about, I guess not. So I mean, like, again, Inception was there too. Like, I'm a huge fan of Inception, and the fact that and it sort of made, and there's quite a few that kind of list. I was also thinking of a couple of like horror films, like 28 Days Later or 28
Okay.
Weeks Later, that I was thinking maybe it can make the list, but ultimately it didn't. So
For sure.
I
can
something
see
like
that.
stuff like that really is
All
what
right.
it is.
What about you, Johnny? You got one that really kind of didn't make the list?
One that could have flip flopped was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
You know
the
what?
second one of
God,
three.
I didn't pick one of those because I thought you were. And
I'm going to save that when we do best trilogies, because that movie, along with that trilogy, we'll talk about. And it is specifically to me the second one. Not I like the first one. I like the third one, but the second one was so good. It was so good.
Andy Serkis. I don't know how those actors are not eligible for Oscars, because Andy Serkis absolutely deserves one. He's been killing it.
The guy, he is Caesar. So yeah, it was really that, or Star Trek. But I was thinking, I should have a pop sci-fi movie in here.
Totally.
That was it.
Mine was a movie that came out. It was John Boyega's, I think, first movie. It's a movie called Attack the Block.
Okay.
I love that movie. It's really fun. It's a bunch of as they call them over there, chavs, like kind of fighting aliens. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's really crazy. And yeah, like they're like fighting like this kind of alien that comes to their neighborhood, and it's they're a bunch of kind of street youths or kind of guys in England, and I highly recommend that one. But it didn't quite edge out any of these movies. So
it's hard when you have so many movies.
Yeah,
right?
it really is.
It
Making
is
these
what it
lists is really frustrating at times. All right, let's get some plugs in. Joe, you wanna plug what we got?
If you guys like I said, for our Instagram, IG, at Films Lovers GTTG, exactly how it sounds. If you guys want to give us any ideas on what to talk about, or any kind of movies, or anything you agree with or disagree with, please let us know, or contact us. We're very open to critiques. We're very open to advice, or any kind of direction we can go on, and we'd love to hear back a lot of feedback. So you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter.
Johnny,
you can follow me at JNO11. That's JNGO11. Give us topics. If you're just following my Twitter, it's just sports and politics. It's really boring, kind of. I just vent about.
We're a bunch of mid-30s.
Don't say it, man. Don't say it.
I know. Fuck. I went to pick something up the other day. My back just deuced me. You can find me on Twitter at JLUTHY, JLuthy. I tweet about pro wrestling, movies, and politics. You can please rate and review us on whatever preferred podcast platform you have. Apple Podcasts specifically. We want to get some more listeners out there. Please send us questions on our Twitters or anything like that. And That does it for us here. And have a great rest of your day or night.